Okay, so this talk in the afternoon is going to be a little bit different than talks that you heard this morning, so that way I'll keep your interest, and Julie's going to join me because we actually do these talks together. So everything will be in English here on out.
Sin Loy. No, I don't know any Vietnamese. I've been married to Andy for 20 years, and Sin Loy, that's about it. And I know pho. That's it.
Nước mắm?
Pho cá. I like chicken pho.
Okay, so the next video you see here are voices not from actors or actresses, but these are voices from families and gaming addicts sharing their experience in this video.
All addictions are driven by the desire to escape something.
You just got sucked into this whole world of video games, and it was like part of your life. It was almost the only part of your life.
He started off with just going for an hour, 2 hours, 2 hours turned into 4, 4 turned into 6, 6 turns into 12, and he's now into the snowball effect that he's got to play that game.
I'm addicted to the game, but I'm not fully addicted. Like, I can quit whenever I want.
To be on top of the game, you really gotta dedicate your life to the video game itself and not worry about reality.
I don't want to live like this anymore. I really don't.
Okay, again, this disclaimer I have to have because I'm active duty. I have to have this standard disclaimer. My wife and I also are the founder of Real Battle Ministries, where we travel around the country giving these talks now. And we do it as a team because you'll see that she has different perspective than I do. And so it adds into a different dimension. So it's kind of like a hologram. You look at a hologram, different sides look differently. So with her in this talk, it actually makes it more interesting.
Because I'm white with white hair. I'm the snowflake.
You are. You want to say anything here?
Well, Andy's a little educated, so I decided that I have half a degree in medicine and half a degree in a PhD as well, but so I can't put it behind my name, but we spent lots of years in Baltimore because he was there. He also assistant professor of ophthalmology for Loma Linda in Riverside, or Loma Linda University. I was a nurse. So I come from a medical perspective as well, and I also, it's gifted me, being educated has gifted me with a different perspective as well. So Andy's and my disciplines are a little bit different but similar. We, so we're busy, but we want to be here to educate you guys and to warn you about what could happen. This is our passion, this is not our vocation, it's our avocation. So I took this picture of Andy, and one of the things that I was thinking was that Andy may not be around forever. He may not be my children's father forever, and that's why we had this picture. That's why I took this picture, to be honest. Because the game, he told you he remembered the game. He doesn't remember the picture. That's the thing about this that makes me want to weep, is that Andy doesn't remember Nicholas at this age, and he almost missed it. We only have a season in which our families are all at home, you know? The time of us locking the door at night and having all of our little children in their homes is not that long. And so, you know, it's so important that we make sure that every time that we have time with our kids, we take it, we cherish it. It's important. Andy used to always say, why are we taking this kid to the zoo? He's not going to remember it. He did remember it. It was important. It's all important. Every experience is important.
So remember the example I gave before about water. Even water, if you have too much of water, it will kill you. Okay? So even water, as benign as that. So back in 2000, in mid-2000, there was Jennifer Strange. She was at a radio station and she was competing for a Nintendo Wii. And the joke was, hold your Wii to win a Wii. That was the motto of this game. So it was a drinking contest, and she was drinking tons of water. And during that time, she started saying, I have headaches. I'm feeling dizzy. I want to throw up. And all the people around her were laughing at her. They were like, come on, it's water. What's your problem? You know, and they were thinking, could this really harm her? You know, the radio announcers, they were asking those kind of questions, but they were just laughing it off. Because like, come on, water. She walked home and she fell down in her bathroom and died. She left 3 kids behind. It was a multi-million dollar lawsuit. If we are that stupid, if we are that ignorant about water in 2000, what don't we know about things that we really don't know about? You see my point? So remember this, even a little bit of something is healthy for you, but if you take too much of it, it can be harmful. So therefore, I also talked about how gaming is the new digital drug. So let me ask you about this, kids. Cocaine. You guys know about cocaine? Is that bad or good? Well, actually, it depends on how you use it. Now, I'm not saying go use cocaine, okay? But I am an eye doctor. There's something called lidocaine, which is a derivative of cocaine. So if I don't use cocaine drops or cocaine-like drops in your eyes, you would not let me do surgery on your eye. Think about that. I have to take a needle and go into the eye and cut it. And if I didn't have anesthetics like cocaine, I could not do surgery on your eye when you need it. So even cocaine is helpful. So in the Bible, it says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. What Paul meant when he said that was that there are things, everything God made in this world for our use. There's a specific time and a specific place for that item. You see my point? So just because cocaine was allowed to be made by God for surgery does not mean you take cocaine to have fun. Does that make sense? We have guns to protect our family. It doesn't mean you go out and use the guns because you're mad. Does that make sense? Okay? Guns don't kill people. It's people that will harm people. Same thing here. So this is all on peer-reviewed research. I had to do this because people thought I was always anti-video games. I'm not. I'm actually doing research in the Navy to learn how can we use video games like cocaine to help clinical patients. So for example, in the eye world, if you use video games, there's evidence now that it helps your eyes be stronger. So at the University of California, Riverside, they have a game that helps with hand-eye coordination. Loving things on the internet more than real people. And we're seeing that in our school systems. We're seeing that with the violent crimes that are happening. Because you know why? In the past, in a small village, if you know everyone in the village, you're less likely to act violently towards the village. But it's only when you don't know people that will you set a fire on purpose during a time of drought in Southern California just to see what happens. You see my point? If you knew that that house was your cousin or your family member, you would never set that house on fire. But because we don't spend time to know our neighbors, kids will set the house on fire because they don't know who they are. You have to take time to spend with people. So why does this matter? We fall in love with the things we trust and the things that we spend time with. Technology is replacing human face-to-face relationships, and we must be very careful because we're trusting what's coming through that technology. And that's where the human trafficking and human predators or predators are tricking our kids. And then the kids who overuse technology are being groomed to be online victims. We don't want you to be online victims. That's why I'm giving this lecture to the kids. I want you to be smart, and I want you to make good choices. But again, remember, your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years old. So you need help, and it's okay to have parents set boundaries for you. We've already talked about these guidelines, but we'll review them again because I think they're important. If you have children that are under the age of 2, no screen time whatsoever. This breaks my heart. You can see now there's training potties, you know, like potties with an iPad stand. You see now changing tables with an iPad stand. I saw a baby being fed at the airport, because we travel quite a bit. A baby was being fed at the airport with a bottle while the dad was holding a screen in front of him. It's so sad. But you know what? I was at fault too, because when I was playing games with, addictively, I used to feed my son with my left hand, and I used to play the games with my right. And then when he got old enough, I taught him how to hold his own bottle, and I put him onto the printer where my gaming system was. But I am in shock now because what I learned about the neuroscience of human connection is when we feed the children, or when we breastfeed the children, the body secretes 2 hormones, prolactin and oxytocin. These are pair bonding hormones. When you secrete those hormones in your body, you actually become attached to your baby. So that's why at age 2, you don't want your babies to be attached to anything else except for you and your family. Don't give them screens. It's too easy. Remember, this is like tukmei. A baby will cry, right? You put it in front of them and they're like quiet. You take it away and they're like, and you put it back. There was a kid at a local diner. His parents were deaf. They couldn't hear. So they would give him an iPad to occupy his time. But it's time to eat dinner. So they take the iPad away. You know what the kid did? He ran around this diner and like, I want my iPad, I want my iPad, I want my iPad. For half an hour. And then the people in the restaurant finally said, give it to him. Just give it to him. So the parents whip it out, and then literally the mom and the baby walk back to their table like this. Now, if this was a bottle of whiskey, we would call Child Protective Services. But because it's only a digital device and they don't know what it's doing to the baby, they're like, just give it to him, just shut him up. You see the problem? So don't use it as a babysitter. And then at 3 to 5 years old, introduce an hour a day of TV, if you want to. But if you're like Ben Carson, read his book, Gifted Hands. You know Ben Carson? The presidential candidate? His mom did not know how to read. But what she knew was that if her kid knew how to read, he would have a better chance in life. Because they live in the ghetto. So she didn't have a TV set. But she made him read and write book reports. Even though she did not know how to read, he had to write book reports. So if you want to, go all out, cancel your cable and get rid of your TV. Today.
I remember watching those bumper stickers because we grew up here. I remember seeing those bumper stickers that said, kill your TV. And I was like, oh, those horrible people. And now I want to be one of them. There's worse programming on TV now than there's ever been. And so now I'm like, yeah, let's get rid of that sucker. So, the thing about raising kids is that it's hard and it's challenging, and sometimes you want to pull your hair out, and sometimes you feel like you might want to shake that kid. Putting a digital device in front of them is not a good solution. And I was looking through some pictures of our kids from before they were in school, and a lot of them had a digital device in them close to the kids, so that I know that they looked up to smile for the picture, and then they went back to their game. So there's hope, because Nick and Kate are doing amazing, but you have to make that decision of what do we want our future to look like? What do I want my child to look like, you know, in the future? If I could do anything, I would never have given them baby Einstein. I wouldn't have done that, any of those things. You know, we wouldn't have had TV. We would have been more intentional. So I hope that you guys can take something from this and maybe change the trajectory of what's happening in your home.
So this is amazing. I'm going to tell this testimony. We haven't shared this testimony publicly with others, but we made the mistake.
I'm afraid.
This is why it's fun to present together. You never know. So we made the big mistake with our biological children, Nick and Kate, right? Because you know our background. And so they struggled. And then God was so good because he knew that he's going to give us another chance. So when we became saved, she became saved at the age of 30, and I was like 34. Okay, so later in our life. And so when we found Jesus, then we started to pray and really read the Bible. And so she was praying in the bedroom, and she heard God's voice. And he said, go adopt a girl from Asia. And I'm like, what? You're crazy. We're going to get a divorce. You know, my family would never accept an adopted kid from Asia, right? There's no way. You know, my mom, no way. You know, I was like, this is not going to happen. But it did happen. But the amazing thing is that we were going to get a boy from South Korea, because it turns out in South Korea, they adopt their boys and keep their girls. Because the boys inherit the family's money. So they get rid of the boy, they keep the inheritance. You see what I'm saying? So I thought that we were going to get a boy. They called us 2 weeks before Emily was ready to be adopted, and they said, would you want to get a girl? And we're like, yeah, because I didn't know how to relate to boys, because I already, my boy and I were already having trouble, so I relate more to little girls. And so it turns out that Emily coming to our family was God's third chance to show us how to love and to heal our family. And the amazing thing is that, remember how I said that 10 years of addiction, you turn around, you have 10 years of ugliness? Well, it was hard to stay together during that 10 years of ugliness, because Julie was like, okay.
Well, it was hard to stay during the 10.
Yeah.
And then the 10.
Yeah, it was hard.
It was hard.
But because of Emily, though, it kept our family together. It taught my son how to be a bigger brother. It taught my other daughter. And then we learned how to be parents. And so with her, we didn't do a lot of electronics. You can see that she's only 8 years old, and she can sit through a 3-hour seminar, because she practiced so many hours of sitting still and entertaining herself. And then we didn't do the digital stuff up here with her. And you know what happened? At 2nd grade, she was reading at 6th grade level. That's amazing. That's evidence. I mean, it's just like, the more. So now when I see kids and, can sit still, like this, I know that you're not on digital media, because the kids that are running around and they're just going crazy. So I always ask parents, do you have a lot of digital media? And they'll tell me, the kids who can behave during a lecture, their answer is no. We're very careful about TV time. We regulate it. And then the kids who are having problems are the ones that are just, always entertained. So, but we came up with these guidelines because people always want, Dr. Doan, what is a guideline? Tell us what to do so we can actually use some of it and not get in trouble. So now, by 6 to 12 years, you can go to 2 hours a day, non-violent TV, but no handheld devices. Don't give handheld devices until they're 13, but you monitor them at that point, and then you let them play 30 minutes of gaming a day. If they exhibit any problems, and Julie went through problems, in the flyer that you got about the addiction stuff, if they have any problems, you take it away again.
I didn't have time to go through the thing.
Oh, you
I was
did?
talking too much. No.
Did you hand it out?
I handed it out.
Okay, so you look at the flyer, there's questions in there that says, if your kids skip chores for gaming, if your kids are doing poorly because of gaming, if your kid has trouble cutting back on gaming, if they answer any question that's yes, then they have a problem. Take it away. Like like we did with our kids. And then never let them play online, and always play age-appropriate games.
And that last one about the online thing is so important, because we're talking about safety, right? I mean, we really don't know who's communicating with our children unless we see them face to face. And we can't trust a person's Facebook profile, or, it's been proven. There's TV shows about catfishing. So it's really important that there's no online interaction with people especially with people you don't know. And this is, my kid's good looking. This is Nick along the top. That was Nick. That's our son. We wanted to give you a visual of what what they would look like. But the amazing thing about this to me is that as much damage as you can do, the brain is amazing at recovering. So that if you address any issues of addiction or overuse or any shortfalls in development, if you address them early enough, there's a lot of work that can happen that can be repaired. And so that's the amazing thing, is that, you know, with God all things are possible, and He's made it so that we can, if you address the issue early enough, you will not have as many problems down the line.
So I'm going to just for review again, I talked to the kids about Malcolm Gladwell's book. Parents, have you guys read Malcolm Gladwell? Anybody here? Okay, so Malcolm Gladwell is a social scientist, and he says that basically if you have Tiger Woods, or you have a famous basketball player, or baseball player, or CEO, you're born with natural ability, and you were born at the right time to be that superstar. But one thing they all had in common was they practiced 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is 5 years of 40 hours a week. That's a lot of time. So we have to then develop the brain all equally. But you remember, kids in the United States are using the screen 7 hours, 38 minutes a day in 2010. That was a Kaiser Foundation study. So if they're all spending time on games, their brain is going to be lopsided. They're not going to have communication skills and empathy and self-control and reflective thought and athletic ability. And then if they pass a certain point in their brain development, it's going to be too late to get those skills later. Everyone understands that, right? So if you're going to have a son or a daughter who's going to do all these amazing things, they need to develop those skills when their brain is still young.
That's my handsome son. So the thing about Nick is that he's so driven like himself. He's a lot like Andy in that when we took the games away, number one, he was really mad. And number two, he had all this time. And that was the thing that I talked about with the parents a little bit was if your kid is playing a lot of games, a lot of TV, a lot of video stuff, there's gonna be time that they won't know what to do with it. And that's why I like that Moms Managing Media website. That's why I also like club sports. And I know they're expensive, but hey, it keeps them out of jail. And that's kind of what I decided, that we were gonna invest in Nick's time. And so he played club travel soccer, and it's not cheap, but it gave him something to do that was physical. It taught him tons of things. Athletics teach kids so much. You know, there's tennis, there's golf, there's lifelong sports that you could teach have your children learn that will carry them through to the future, and it's good for business, right? Golf is good for business, tennis is, so those are good things for the future. It keeps them healthy. There's tons of research that shows how important physical activity is to brain development and learning. So get your kids moving. There is a huge epidemic, obviously not in this room, but there's a huge epidemic in our country with obesity. And it's related to screen time. But so Nick's first weekend that he did not play games, he cleaned Andy's car. And then
by himself, without me asking. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm bored. So being bored is actually good. So
then he started devoting all this time to practicing by himself with the soccer ball on the pitch, playing. He got MVP of his sophomore class, or JV team, whatever, for soccer. And then he switched over to running. So the point is that they're gonna need time. They're gonna need something to fill that time, so help them find something to fill the time. And so Nick found that it was soccer, and then it switched to long distance running. And so, I know that you guys aren't all runners, and if we all were, then what other sports we play. So every kid has DNA. Every one of us has DNA that's equipped to do something amazing. Nick's is running. And thank God we didn't unplug him. See, my thing with Nick is that if we didn't do it at the time we did, if we didn't act appropriately at the right time, we would have missed this. If he was 45 when he decided he was a gifted runner, too late, doesn't matter, right? So, you know, developing those skills early is so helpful to them. So Nick is at University of Portland, and he got a lot, you know, he received a scholarship. It's a great school. So, you know, now he's living out what he would have never even looked at University of Portland had he not run. He would not be there. So, you know, like all these things fit together now. So he's such a beautiful picture of what can happen. You know, it's not gonna happen like that for everybody, but something like that can happen for you guys.
And so I just want to review this parable that Jesus told in Luke 13, passages 6 through 9. So at this time, he was talking about sin, and how sin, we need to repent of our sins, otherwise we're going to perish. Then he jumps right into this parable and he says, okay, there's a land keeper who approached the master and said, there's a fig tree in the garden that's not bearing fruit. Let's get rid of it. It's wasting land, it's wasting our resources. The Lord goes, no, let's dig a boundary around it. Let's watch over it. Let's give it special attention. And if it bears fruit in a year, fine. If not, we yank it out and we replace it. Isn't that so true? If Nick didn't hit his times that he ran, the 4:11 mile, the 9:05 2 mile, the 14:44 for the 3 mile, during his junior year in high school, the recruiting was during that year. If we did not take the games away until his junior year, we would have missed the recruiting season. You see my point? There is a season to manifest the gift that God has given you. And the amazing thing is God, right? He has a plan. If he wants a Goliath to be destroyed, he's going to raise a David to destroy Goliath. You see my point, right? But it's up to us to answer the call too and say, okay, I want to be your servant and I will accomplish that. If you don't accomplish it, he replaces you with someone else because he already has a plan to get that thing done. So we could be missing out on God's blessing if we decide that we're just going to waste our time doing what we want to do and not bear the fruit that God has programmed us to bear.
When you were a kid, what did you do for fun?
So we'd go blueberry picking, for instance. That's so cute. But it was true.
We grew watermelons, plantains.
I found an old sign which was big enough for me to sit on and made a great toboggan. It was very slick and very fast.
I had a few fish in my basket, and I looked up on this bluff, and here's this black bear sitting there watching me. If he starts chasing me, I'm going to keep throwing the fish out of my basket until he's gorged and he won't bother me.
And what did you like to do for fun? You know, you go door to door, get a group of kids, and you play lots of games, hide and seek, just going out to the field and playing baseball.
And we built these massive forts, you know, the kind that you can actually sit in and play in, you know, with our friends, and it was just really wonderful.
So what do you like to do for fun?
Video games, definitely.
I like to go on my phone,
text, some email.
My favorite thing to do in the world is definitely watching videos and playing video games. Those take up so much of my time.
3 hours or 3 to 4 hours a day. Same.
5 hours straight.
Just last week, I watched 23 episodes of a TV series in less than 4 days.
I forget. I'm in a house, I have parents, I have a sister, I have a dog, I just think I'm in the video game, I completely get lost. I would die if I don't have my tablet.
Whenever I feel upset, I'd play video games and I'd feel normal. It's really wonderful.
When your daughters grow up, your great-great-grandkids, what do you think will happen if this trend continues?
It's scary to think that they'll never have to leave the house.
Cindy grew up doing a lot of the things that I did and enjoyed, and I see what my grandsons are doing today, and it's mind-boggling.
By the time they have kids, it's going to be a really different environment.
I actually feel a little sad because I feel like he's missing out on what's out there in the beautiful world.
special connection with nature. I think it's innate in all children, but needs to be nurtured.
We're not advertising eating granola bars. We just thought it was so poignant and so perfect to say, look, this is a drastic change in our culture, the way we spend time. It's so different. There's a research that's out. This man spent a long time studying play in animals and in people. And he says that play, rough and tumble, I describe this to the parents, and I think some of them are probably turned off, but a good day is when your children are dirty. It produces healthy children emotionally, physically, and spiritually. When they get outside and they experience nature, when they dig in the dirt, when they climb trees, when they play sports, it's healthy. It makes healthy children. No, they're not clean, but they're healthy, and that's more important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book that she's referring to, I recommend on Amazon. It's called Play by Dr. Stuart Brown. He's a pediatrician. He's done 30 years on play. He says perverted people who are psychopaths had problems with play when they were young children. But the kids that grew up really healthy, they had this rough and tumble play. They climb trees, go out and wrestle. Because when you do those kind of things, you learn your limitations. But even animals need it. So in the book, he tells of a story of a polar bear. During this time when the ocean was frozen over, the polar bear couldn't go seal hunting. So the polar bear came to this camp and found some sled dogs. And he could have easily killed the sled dogs for food, but he came there specifically to play with the dogs. So he would play every day for a couple hours with the dogs, and then he would walk away. And this is a huge polar bear. And then finally, when the ocean thawed out a little bit and the seals were accessible, he went back to hunting the seals. Is that amazing? So even animals need play. That's so important. So I'm not here to take away your fun, kids. I'm here to help you learn how to play so that you have a healthy future and a healthy life. So partner with me. Go like our posts, go follow us, read our book, spread the word. And if you're a leader or a thought leader in your community, get us into your organization, because the more people hear about this, the better. And let me warn you, the gaming industry is very powerful. They're a $100 billion industry. They don't want this information out, right? Because they make lots of money. So they come up with research to show that it's healthy, no problems. There's no problems with violent video games. I heard the congressional testimonies. They're all flawed. But if you take an approach like I do, you realize, yeah, gaming is not so bad, but we need to be smart and wise about it. So now we're going to open up for questions, and the audience feel free to ask us any question you have. Francis, how do you want to run this last part? Sure.
Yeah, so cha mẹ hay các con ai muốn hỏi gì ông bà doctor, bác sĩ Đoàn thì chúng ta có thể hỏi nha. Even you use Vietnamese or English. Either way, nói tiếng Việt, tiếng Mỹ, con nít cũng được quyền hỏi, cha mẹ cũng hỏi, không cần hỏi gì không, chúng ta sẽ ông bà sẽ trả lời chúng ta.
So mấy đứa nhỏ nói Việt Nam được không? Oh really? Better than me.
Okay, my dear.
I have a question for all parents and the kids. Sometimes when they play the game, they all pay attention on the game. They never know anything around, don't care about the people around. So sometimes the parents cannot wait until they're done for the game. That's why they always asking for the middle of the game. Sometimes they mean about we interrupt them. So do you have any idea or advice for them how to react to the people, how to interrupt them? Not being interrupted like asking for.
Sure.
Because sometimes they don't know, like, they mean about like, they not bad attitude, but that start building up. But
Sure.
They didn't know, so.
Sure, so my recommendation is that you wait till they're 13 before you let them play games. Because at that age, they understand what a contract is. So a contract is an agreement, a written agreement. So now you say, okay, we're going to let you play 30 minutes a day or 60 minutes a day. We set the timer. The timer goes off, you get off the computer without raising any fuss. They sign that. I mean, whatever rules you want to implement in your house. And you put it next to the computer, and you take the computers out of their rooms. They play in the family room. They play in the kitchen. Okay? So when in our family, we locked down the computer when my son was growing up. He couldn't have access anymore. So only I knew the password. Then you have this contract. If they don't fulfill the contract, then there are consequences. No games for a month. And then no games for 2 months. And then maybe just take it away forever. You see? But you have to set boundaries and a contract at the age of 13 or so. That's when they can understand that.
Thank you. Ai có câu hỏi gì nữa không? Kid, do you have a question? Okay.
So I have a daughter who's 15. She's in high school sophomore now. She's not here, so she had an iPad that was given to her by school during the school year, and then she had her phone. Unfortunately, we gave her the smartphone, which is not my choice, but we limit her time. You know, so you can insert an account in your phone for call and texting. However, she get all these free pics and, you know, whatever they do with her friends. So every 2 minutes, there will be a buzz on her phone. So she has her phone, here's the iPad. It's hard to control the school, give an account. Well, this is my homework, Mom, and she has her own password. And then the phone buzzing every 2 minutes because it's my friend, my social circle. How do we approach that to control the time on the screen?
Wow, that's a hard one. So you remember the LA experiment? I think that the school districts are doing a huge disservice to our families. And now, you know, the thing that really gets me irritated is that the tech executives don't send their kids to technology schools, but they have lobbyists to push it onto our public schools and private schools. You notice that? So that's the battle you have. But now, if they're truly using it for homework, they have to do the homework in front of you, in the kitchen or in the living room. My daughter struggled with the iPad or the device. We took it away completely and locked it up. At night, my wife implemented a new regimen.
So everybody in my house has to plug in their phone by the telephone. So I have a charging station and everybody places their phone at the charging station. The problem with that system is that I'm chasing after everybody every day. You know what I mean? But I'd rather chase after them to plug their phone in a central location. Since I own the phone and I pay for it, no apps go on the phone that I don't know about. Because Kik, Snapchat, those are the apps that traffickers use to traffic girls. Instagram, those are the ones. I mean, the research is out, the lawsuits are out, it's in the record. Those are the apps. So yes, it's a social app, but perspective is hard for kids who are very social in that regard. So, but for me, it's my phone. I let you use it. It comes off. So that's just the way I'm mean, I'm sorry.
Now she is mean. Let me tell you another story here real quick. So when the kids are bored, you know what she says? Here's a toilet brush. So the kids are never bored. Okay? So they get to clean the house when they're bored. So our kids never say they're bored, because if they're bored, she makes them clean. We have cleaning ladies, by the way, so we don't have to clean, but she makes them clean anyway. But you know, the thing is, her strategy actually works. There's a basket that everyone, when their friends come over, they all check in their devices in the basket. So it's, you know, we're like, okay, we have a party at our house, everyone throws their smartphone in the basket. That way they interact. So when my son had his 18th birthday party / you know, going away for college, you know, party, you know what the kids did? We had a jigsaw puzzle out, a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. The kids all got together, like 15 of them, and solved the puzzle during that time. And some other kids were playing ping pong and talking. It was amazing. So you can implement those rules too. People will think you're crazy at first, But it's your house, your rules. So when they come home, they check their devices in and they interact with you. And then after a certain point, so you can say at 5 o'clock, all devices go in the basket. And then we have dinner and we're talking and speaking to each other. Does that help?
What's your question?
Like, my phone is like my life. So like, yes. So sometimes like my phone, like I can only play on weekends. Like no weekends, right? Saturday and Sunday. But on weekdays sometimes I need my phone. But like my parents put it away. But I crave it. Like my body's telling me I need it. So do you have any recommendations?
Wow. Okay, so awesome. Thank you for being honest. That's awesome. So I love this age. This age is where they're honest, right? They know how they feel and they're honest about their feelings. It's only when they get to like 20 and they're like, no, I don't feel that way. They try to, no, I don't feel that way. So it takes 45 days for your brain to reset itself. So you remember the biochemical changes I talked about in the brain and the body? It takes about 45 days. That's why the addiction rehab centers are 30-day long. Until you unplug completely, that's what the craving is about. So if you want to, you can actually unplug from your devices for a month. You go through the pain, and then what I recommend is probably don't use your phone at all. Because you don't need it right now at your age. It can't be your life, right? Because you're not running a business. You have a business? Are you making money? Running a company? So it can't be your life. You see my point? So what I recommend is picking up the phone and calling your friends. So my daughter had the same problem. She was 12 and she was pacing around the house when we cut her texting. And she was like, not fair. And she walked into her room and we're looking at each other going.
I was laughing. See, I told you, I was laughing because it's a life out of balance, right? I mean, that's if you think about the priorities that we're supposed to have, it's God, others, ourself, right? I mean, that's what we're supposed to, God, others, ourself. If we're living a Christian life, that's the healthy perspective, right? So that's out of balance. And I know you know that, because that's why you said that. And so if we are feeding things, we're feeding a craving that isn't honoring to God, then we're placing that thing above God, and that becomes an idol. We don't want to have idols. We want to have God be the number one. So we have to, if it's out of balance, there's flip phones. There's flip phones. I know that's a dirty word in this room, flip phone.
And then pick up the phone and call your friends. So when my daughter went crazy on us about the texting, a week later she comes back and she thanks us. She goes, Dad, you're right. Mom, you're right. I have a problem. Just like what you shared. And then I said, Caitlin, Nick, pick up the phone and call your friends. Talk to them. So now they talk. I know, your face is like, what's that? What's talking to my friend? But seriously, that's what you need to do, because when you go for a job interview, that's what people want you to do, right? They want you to talk to them, so you need to practice.
Well, like she shared, that's the same thing, so that's why I took it away. And it's hard, as a parent, it's hard, and like I learned a lot from her, it's not that I went into the internet and see how can I do something. Of course it's not, it's not easy and it's not hard. So I Google it and I get some of the, like tips and stuff. So that's the things that I said, take it away from them, but tell them why.
Right.
And it's not easy and hard. And then she got mad at me. She didn't even talk to me about 3 days. And I'm okay with that. Because I want her to think through that, okay, in 3 days, I want you to think that I'm a bad mom. And she went to Dad and said, Mom is this, Mom is that. I said, it's okay. You can call me a bad guy. I'm okay with that. So I took away about a week now, and it's okay. But like you said, it took about 45 days, and I learned from it too. And I said, okay, I know it's okay. So now we interact each other. Like I take them in the backyard. Go out in the backyard. Whatever you got to do, I'm okay with that. But like you said, as a parent, it's very hard. And when you seen your kids don't talk, it broke my heart. You know, I said, okay, what did I do wrong here? You know, sometimes you ask yourself, what did I do wrong here? And sometimes you have to tell yourself, I don't think I do anything wrong, because as a parents, that's what we're supposed to. We have to do a role as a parents in order for them to know what is right and what is wrong.
Well, and I think you know, I think it comes down to placing things above all other things. It's life out of balance, and that, you know, there's an order of things that need to happen, and God should be at the top, and then when He is, then everything else fits into place, and it's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so I'm an older brother, and I work with my parents to take care of my younger siblings. And one of the troubles that I face is that we have a reward system, basically, for my younger sibling. And we reward him if he does good. We give him like a certain amount of money if he does chores or something, and if he does something good. And he buys, of course, like games and other stuff with that. And you know, the thing that he pins against us is that if he buys it by himself, it's his property. And so he's, you know, we cannot control his property because it's his reward. It's with his money. And so, what do you deem? What do you draw the borderline of like his property, our property, what we can control as older parents?
Okay, so until the child can be self-sufficient and clothe themselves and feed themselves and pay for their own electricity and pay for their own insurance and pay for life, nothing belongs to them. Okay, so everything that we give them as a child, even reward systems or allowances, still belongs to us. So nothing belongs. So okay, my son, when he doesn't behave, you know what she does? She throws everything out of his room. Literally, the only thing legally we're supposed to keep.
You're making me sound like such a mean person.
But no, but she needed to do that because it actually taught my son responsibility. So everything has to be regulated, and really, when we put these boundaries down, it's not because we hate our kids; it's because we love them. And I just gave you evidence, and I showed you videos and stories of people that didn't have boundaries. Right? It gets out of control. So
well, I think that also, I mean, if you buy into the fact that what we're saying is that this is a digital drug, right? And I hopefully you guys agree with us on that. So if it's legal and it's a drug, are you going to let them have unrestricted access to it? So if I gave my child money, if I gave Nick money as a reward and he went out and bought marijuana with it, would I let him smoke it? No, I wouldn't. It's legal, but I'm not going to let him smoke it. I'm not going to let him buy it because it's not good for him. I'm making sort of, for some people it's an epic leap, but for us in our experience, we see that it's on the same lane, it's on the same line. So yes, you can have money, but no, you cannot buy games. And that's kind of where we've been, you know, Nick likes shoes, so now he buys shoes.
Yeah, like I told Julie earlier, you know, we've been struggling for years with my kid. And we even talked with the doctor, his doctor, and they said, it's okay, he's just a kid, you know, playing the games. And I found your book, we read that, and we did the thing that you recommended, took away the games, I mean the computer, the laptop, the iPad, and the iPhone. But we've never been firm enough to take away like 45 days. This is so long. I mean, I took away like 3 days and I got soft heart. I gave it back to him. And then he like sweet talked me and then he knows it. So he always did that. And then, you know, oh yeah, you're so mean and you guys are so strict. All my friends have that. So we gave it back after a few days if he behaved. But after what we hear today, I'm so motivated. I'm gonna take away everything. He's here. So
Where's he at? Where's he at? No, don't put him out.
But anyway, I'm really motivated, and I hope he hears it and he agrees with us. But anyway, you think it's too hard, or we take away right away, or we should be slowly?
Okay, so let me clarify this. Okay, so if your child is violent, if your child has a tendency to hurt themselves, do not take it away completely. You need a medical professional and work with that realm. Because there are stories of the kids either hurting themselves or hurting their families, right? So that's my first recommendation. But if your child's not violent and able and agree to, you have to get buy-in and agree to take it away, then you just take it away. But you talk to them. And you know, this is a hard issue because everyone's doing it, right? But remember the time when everyone's smoking and it's okay to smoke everywhere? But now in Oregon, you know, there's all these rules. You can't even smoke anywhere, right? It's against the rule. You have to smoke like out the curb and away from the business now. But if everyone was smoking and everyone got lung cancer, we would think it's normal. Oh, lung cancer is part of life. Just live with it. That's where we're at in society. So I'm working with pediatricians who showed that basically if you take away the devices, kids who have Asperger's or autistic-like symptoms, they actually got better in 6 months. Why? Because the brain is now allowed to develop in the other areas where they were deficient in that autistic or Asperger's condition. But the problem is my medical colleagues are way behind because it's not an official diagnosis. So that's what they say, it's only a game, just let them go. But they don't understand the science because they don't have time to spend, you know, in the literature and studying. They just don't know. We don't know yet.
Thank you so much.
So I have a husband who is not in game, but he's very technological kind of guy. So he got home. Yeah, I probably have that he's working, and he loves to kind of streamline movie online and see what's appropriate for us to watch. But he got home after dinner, we'll be on the computer screen, and the kids kind of imitate that. Your daddy on the computer screen. I understand that it works, but then you know it's hard to draw the line. Daddy's at work, and so why can't I be online or on the screen? How would I approach him in a way more productive?
Well, some of the things that we tried to institute, which have varying levels of success, were things like, can you, if you have to be on the computer, can you communicate to the children, I'm on for work, I'm not playing? And then also, can you possibly do your work when the kids aren't around, like after they've gone to bed, you know, because, you know, we're trying to get families to interact with each other and make eye contact and have meals together, and those are the healthy things, right? So what about watching the movie, everyone watch the movie together, and those kinds of things, you know, involving everybody in the family. I'm tapped out there.
Yeah, you know, for me, I'm a technology addict, okay? So obviously I said I'm the same addict before. You know, I don't like paper books because they don't turn me on. I read a paper book, I fall asleep like that. I read on a Kindle, I can finish a book in like 6 hours because I'm turned on. I walk into Best Buy, I'm excited. You know, literally, I smell the new electronics, I get excited. It's really weird. You know how you open the new computer and you can smell the new computer? To me, that reminds me of the gaming computers that I used to really love to make. So I had to make a conscious effort to change myself before I could change my family. So really, you have to have buy-in with your husband. And is he here today? Oh, he is. Okay. Yeah. So you need to understand that this is like a drug, that it stimulates the body and mind, and you have to have buy-in from your husband. So perhaps maybe reading the book together with him, or watching one of my online videos together with him, and then having a discussion, because unless he changes, the entire family will not change.
And I think that's a big thing in our society right now, is that we've reduced men's roles so to nothing. And so they're just like the dudes that make the money. They have no. Daddies need to stand up. They need to lead their families. Daddies really do. They have to lead by example, and they can and they should, and they, you know, their kids desperately need them. Daddies need to stand up and be the man and put their foot down and say, we're going to be healthy, you know, in every way. because, you know, daddies are so vitally important.
I'll give you an example. You know, Emily's here, and I never talk about Emily because I'm going to put you on the spot. So, you know, sometimes she doesn't like to go exercise because it's hot in Temecula, it's, you know, like 110 degrees. We're like, no, we need to go walking because we need to be healthy. We're going to stop drinking so much soft drinks, and we're going to drink more water. You know, it took both Julie and I to be in accordance before we could change behaviors. So get buy-in, respect him. You know how it says in the Bible, you know, you respect your husband and you submit to his authority, but he's supposed to love you like Christ loved the church, right? Who laid his life down for the church. So there's a mutual relationship here where you both are leaders in the family and moving forward together so that you have a healthy family union.
Yeah, my question is, do you have any advice or resources for adult kids that are kids older than 18, independent, that are addicted or were addicted because of the damages were done and how, you know, fix it?
Okay, so for an addicted adult, if they're living with you, you have to make sure they're not violent, right? But you have to get buy-in from them. But if they're an adult kid living with you, you don't have to support them, because if you continue to support them, this is the cheapest drug ever. So, for example, I had a West Point cadet who failed out of his first year at West Point. Remember, West Point's a military university with full ride scholarship. He failed out. He became a 40-year-old man living in his apartment who his parents pay for, playing World of Warcraft. So as long as you have an addicted child in your family who's an adult and you keep on paying for their electricity, food, and housing, they will remain addicted. You have to get buy-in. So you have to sit down with them and talk to them about this. If they don't want to listen, you have to sometimes play hardball and don't support them in their internet addiction, right? Now, if they have buy-in, there are programs. So there's something called Teen Challenge. And I started talking to the founder and the CEO, actually not this founder, but the CEO of Teen Challenge. They are a God-focused, Christ-centered focused recovery program for 1 year of discipleship. So the addict, they typically work with heroin addicts and alcohol addicts, but this is a completely free program. So you can actually ask them to join a Teen Challenge program, and some programs now understand video game and internet addiction. They can accept them into that program and treat it just like a drug addiction, because it is the same. The other option is that if you have the financial resources, because unfortunately, because it's not an official diagnosis in the DSM, insurance companies won't pay for treatment. But there are treatment centers. There's only 2 in the United States. There's one in Pennsylvania, and there's one in Washington near Seattle. But it's about $25,000 a month. A month. Addiction, this is why the gaming companies are fighting it so hard, right? So let me throw this question out to you. And this is just an aside from you. So I gave you some stuff that you can do. But the gaming companies, they have to stand in the position that it's not an addiction. Because they have records of how long you all play. So if they have a record that a child plays on average 60 hours a week for the last 15 years of their life, and they did nothing about it, do they have social and corporate responsibility to warn you at least as parents? But if it costs $25,000 for treatment, how much at 1 in 11 rate of addiction, that means there's 3 million kids, 8 to 18, addicted to gaming. 3 million kids in the US alone only. In China, there's about 100 million addicts in China. In China, in 2009, declared that this was the #1 problem in their teenagers. And they have over 200 addiction centers in China.
Over 400.
Now it's over 400.
Over 400.
In China. So some of these adult children need a rehab center to go to unplug, and then teach them how to learn to reintegrate. And then finally, my advice to you is that, how is their walk with the Lord? For me, the Lord, having a knowledge that God is real and able to intervene in my life, that was the thing that broke my addiction. And you'll find that a lot of addicts talk about that spiritual awakening where they find a higher power, God, specifically for me, that actually can work in their life. But the problem is most addicts don't believe in God anymore. Anything else to say there? That's a hard one.
Yeah, and the thing is that once they're an adult, right? So they have, you can't compel them to do anything. But one of the things that I have done and I continue to do for Nick, who's an addict, is I pray. I pray all the time for him. And prayer works, and it's powerful. And I ask other people to pray for him, and you know, we're praying for him to stay clean. And that is a purely non-secular answer, but we are deeply committed to our relationship with God, and I pray that his mind is healed because he has brain damage, and that I pray that he wants the things of God and that he'll stay clean. And so we're still in it with him because, you know, he sometimes when he gets a lot of, you know, Andy showed the slide that was talking about you know, the brain, that confusing one with all the arrows and the brain is at the top. That's about stress, really. It's about how do they manage their stress. And if they can successfully manage stress without video games, then they can do a lot better. So it's finding a good way to manage their life without video games, finding healthy ways to deal with stress. That's the thing.
And this breaks my heart, you know, because I think the best way to approach this is prevention. Because once you get to the point where they're adult, it's so hard. So hard. Because when I was speaking with addiction specialists, the success rate is about...
it's low. It's 10%, isn't it?
Yeah. The success rate, even at the rehab center for $25,000 a month, is like 20 to 30%. For $25,000 a month. And when I talked to Dr. Cash up in Washington, she goes, Andy, you're different than the other gaming addicts. You can speak, you're articulate, you know, you communicate well. That's because I grew up without the technology really, right? I was a 3-sports letterman. I was the vice president for my freshman class for school. So I developed all those skills. You remember the finger analogy? I had all the fingers developed. I got addicted at the age of 25. I got addicted after my brain developed. But these kids that are coming in, they're being, you know, there's serious brain rehabilitation that needs to be. So love, prayer, God, and then finding a life coach and accountability partner. So someone who can love your child, who can walk with them and mentorship and disciple them. Because what they need is really a reprogramming of all the bad stuff that now years and years and years of bad programming. They need to have new programming. So this is why I'm convinced the gaming companies will always fight this, because if it ever became a real clinical diagnosis, it would cost so much, it would bankrupt the industry. 3 million kids at $25,000 a month, you're talking about a $100 billion liability. This is worse than even cancer, because in cancer, you just pay a family and say, okay, I'm sorry, here's $10,000, go on your way, right? Or $5,000 or $2,000. But with this is a continual rehabilitation that needs to be. So there's also 12-step groups. So there's like something called Celebrate Recovery, which is a 12-step Christ-centered recovery group that you can get your child or your adult child to go to, where they're being discipled by other addicts. And now that helps them out of the addiction. But they have to have buy-in. That's the number one. Any other questions? Thank you.
The other question about when we talk about the open people, even like the parent or the children, with the open people will be easy. But how we deal with the quiet people. Sometimes I try to do like individual talk or family talk, and sit down to talk and lead them, keep your voice down. But sometimes they say okay, but we don't know how going, because after communicate will be done. That's why if the open people, we keep communicate, keep going on, but if the quiet people, we don't know how to do it. Could you advise how we can do?
Yeah, so the question is, let me rephrase it, Steve, I'm answering the right thing. So you're asking if you have a quiet member in your family, how do you help them overcome their quietness so that they don't just run to the technology to avoid communication? Is that the question? So it's going to take practice, right? So the way, you know, God makes us is that He makes us strong in certain areas, and then He makes us weak in other areas. But the weakness in other areas, we need other people around us to help us so that we develop skills in those areas. So it takes patience on the family part. So if you have quiet members of your family, unplug your entire house and you sit there. And when you're bored, they start talking a little bit. But the first time is hard, but then the next month is easier. And then the next year it'd be easier because they're practicing. Remember the 10,000 hour rule? As they practice the 10,000 hours of communication, it becomes easier and easier. And then when you're ready to launch them off to being an adult in real life, they've already practiced it and now you've prepared them well. So there's no easy answer. It's not like a magic thing you can do. You just have to have patience and be persistent. Don't give in. Because it's so easy for a quiet person to say, I don't want to talk to you face to face, but I'm just going to be on my internet in the corner and just be on my computer. So when we were in Hawaii, we gave a talk on this. There was an addicted 16 or 17-year-old girl. During my talk and during the party, when we had dinner, she was on her laptop playing an adventure game the entire time. Everyone was around talking, and she was on the couch on her computer. I mean, literally, she'll never learn how to do human interaction. So when I talked to her, she was shy, she was not very, very outgoing. But you need to take that computer away because as parents, you can take it away. You own the computer. And actually, I break it. So when my wife break them. So when my son, okay, so he had a PlayStation, like little PS PlayStation thing. He was doing bad things on the thing. She threw it in the garbage. So, get rid of all the devices and you'll see change in your kids.
I'm not that mean. I just am I'm trying to advocate for my family. I desperately, desperately want my family to be healthy. And so when I found unhealthy images, if you know what I mean, on a game system, I went, Andy is very frugal in some regards and has high value for electronics. He would never consider throwing it away. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I threw it away because
It's painful.
I don't want to fight that battle anymore. I think being parents is really difficult. It's the hardest, best job I've ever had. It beats everything I've ever done. It's had more rewards and heartache than anything. But being a parent is hard enough, and I didn't want to fight that fight. It's hard. And so to make it streamlined and more simple for me, it helps me a lot. So that helped me a lot.
And let me encourage you, because we're asking you to do something different than what society is telling you to do. So if you do cancel cable and get rid of your stuff in your house, your friends will think you're weird, okay? And let me encourage you that it's sometimes worth going through that to get your family to be stronger. So we have friends who come over who are addicted to football and games. They literally don't know what to do. They don't want to talk to us. They're like fussing around, trying to how can you function in your house without college football? They're trying to flip to the channels and they don't understand why there's nothing coming on the TV. Literally, right? So what happens is you make new friends. You find real, other people that you connect with, and that's what we've done. And so you remember, you only need 5 really good relationships, right? So you have only time to foster those 5. So it takes patience and time to foster those 5. Any more questions?